Happy Friday afternoon, Golden Black Live, and we're glad that you're joining us for the February 12th show. Their special guest today will be, well, Tom and Brian are always special guests, but they'll be in segment one. Segment two will be Rob Hummel. We'll talk to him about last night's game and some other things as well. Tom Moreland, who's handled strategic planning, et cetera, for Purdue football, Senior Associate Athletic Director in Athletics, will join us for segment three. I want to thank our sponsors. And that, of course, is Triple X, on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. And Hilton Garden Inn, when tomorrow's a big day, State HDI tonight. It was almost a big night last night for Purdue, the men's basketball team. Another tough loss on the road. Similar, I guess, to some extent to Maryland, but a disappointing game. A game that you had in hand, but that's kind of the nature of Big Ten basketball, that things can evaporate quickly, and it did for Purdue at the end, and ended up being a disappointing loss for Matt Painter and company.
Yeah, I mean, it unfolded a lot like Maryland in the sense that Purdue had a relatively solid lead there. Right down the stretch. I think they were up 5 with 2 minutes to go. Like they were up 6 with 3 minutes to go at Maryland, something like that. But, it's kind of the nature of the Big Ten this year is it's just a whole bunch of games between teams that are just as good as one another. And they're going to come down to the very end. And, Purdue made all the plays at the very end at Michigan State and Ohio State, and against Maryland and Minnesota, the home teams were able to do just that. Minnesota, I think, is they're 3 of 19 from three going into the final few minutes, and they close 4 of 5 from three. They bank one in. They get one off a shot Purdue blocked. Couple of obviously officiating decisions Purdue didn't agree with go against you in the final minute, and it's kind of life on the road in the Big Ten. But this team continues to show a competitive streak. They continue to play well enough to win games. They're 2 possessions away from being 5-3 in the road in the Big Ten instead of 3-5. 1 possession at Maryland, 1 possession at Minnesota. I know the long view is a little bit abstract in a moment like this after Purdue loses in such a disappointing fashion, but that's kind of where Purdue is. What the last couple of games have showed you is just that after those Michigan State and Ohio State wins on the road, Purdue didn't have the world all figured out after all. They were still subject to the parity of this league, just like everybody else.
Yeah, Brian, I tell you what, there were some disappointments last night, but you have to continue to be impressed with the big fellas, right? Trevion Williams and Zach Edey especially. I'll be honest, my expectations were pretty low for him coming in. For a kid who really had not played basketball that long, certainly not at a high level, see, the impact he's had has really been remarkable. And again, Trevion Williams, what more can you say? Kind of put the team on his back again last night. Had a big ball game, and they're going to need that down the stretch. I know they're still sitting pretty for the big dance, but as we know, Tuesday night, here come the Michigan State Spartans. I know Purdue won in East Lansing, but we all know you can never look past Sparty here coming up again on Tuesday in Mackey.
Yeah, something to make mention of about Trevion Williams that got lost in all of the events of the final minute and a half yesterday was the fact that, well, I still haven't seen it travel, having watched that play over and over again. Just an unfortunate call for Purdue. But before that, he makes 2 enormous baskets for you to respond to Minnesota baskets, to put you in a position to win. Just came up big for Purdue when they needed him to. Who knows what would have happened if they didn't call the traveling that, we can discuss all day long, but didn't seem to be traveling to me. Didn't seem to be traveling to Matt Painter. Obviously, I wouldn't expect him to say otherwise. But Matt Painter is not Fran McCaffrey. He's not the guy who comes out and bitches about the officials after every game, no matter what. He's not that guy. When he speaks with certainty about something after a game, he has earned credibility over the years by not being that guy who is Mr. Excuse Giver, who doesn't want to take away from anything other than what transpired from a basketball perspective. So do take him at his word that he genuinely believed that wasn't traveling. I don't see anything on that video to lead me to believe it was. Just an unfortunate deal for Purdue there. But before that, Trevion Williams got you 2 huge baskets, one off the offensive rebound, one off the little ballerina move he made past Liam Robbins. Just came up big for you. And he and Zach Edey combined have been exactly what you need both of them to be all Big Ten season long. Zach Edey has been, I can't say this enough, a revelation for Purdue. He has bailed Purdue out of a a real personnel hole because, backup center was going to be a huge question mark coming into the season. He's getting better. As hard as it is to believe, considering he dominated the first 2 or 3 games he played in, he's getting better. I mean, with every game he's playing, he's getting better and better. He's a better defender now than he was. You can see him course correcting offensively, not putting the ball on the floor as much, keeping it high, going straight into his move, going away from double teams, things like that. He's just learning as he goes and getting better as he goes. And that's really encouraging for Purdue. And it's really scary when you consider what he is now relative to what he can be 2 years from now.
37 points combined between the two of them, and I don't know how many rebounds, but a lot total. That was very, very impressive. And I would agree that Edey has really stepped up and asked to play a fair amount of minutes. Williams gets the early first foul in yesterday's game, and Edey's got to come in and play. And do well, and he continues to do it. Yeah, it had all the markings to me of a game that everything was great except for you didn't win. And I understand. I would agree that. Yeah. I mean, not everything was great, but there was a lot of good things to see out of that. I mean, Mason Gillis continues to make huge contributions, hits a huge three, gets called for a tough foul at the end and fouls out. But, again, it's just almost on down the line. I know that Jaden Ivey didn't have the game that he needs to have, and that's part of the story. But this is an interesting process and a team that has got a lot going for it. And one thing, Tom, you talked about the schedule, but Brian, you look at, if you're looking at it from a Vegas perspective, Purdue probably will be a favorite in every game going from here down the stretch. With maybe Penn State will be a very tough game, and there'll be tough games all the way down. But my point is, this schedule, Purdue has a chance to have a fair amount of momentum heading into the Big Ten tournament if Purdue can take care of business in the rough and tumble Big Ten.
Yeah, but you just have to get back to win. I mean, I'm not saying they're necessarily losing right now, but you have lost 2 close games in a row on the road. You have to get back to where you were, pulling some of these games out too, to be able to finish as strong as you can, because there's going to be close games the rest of the way. Purdue may be a favorite, the rest of the way in every game, but Purdue was like a 1 or 2 point pick'em type of deal at Maryland and Minnesota, and both went against them. Purdue's got to make more shots. I don't understand necessarily how this works in basketball when a whole team can go cold at once. Yeah. And not just, individuals in silos at times, but for Purdue to go 2 of 17, from 3 yesterday, that's, if it wasn't for the events of the last 2 minutes, that's the story of the game. Because this is a better shooting team than this. I don't know if necessarily the volume coming from certain guys is ideal, but I think they have to be a better shooting team than this. Minnesota gets 13 offensive rebounds. You could have done a better job. You out-rebounded Minnesota, but you out-rebounded them by a hell of a lot less last night than you did the first time around. They could have done a better job there. But Purdue's got to find a way to make more shots. It's just their margin of error on offense when you have to play through the post and you have to get freshmen to get into the lane and make plays and be subject to their decision-making more than you probably like to be. It's just tough. And, Purdue's a way better shooting team than 2 of 17 in any game. But their percentage at this point of the season kind of tells you what they are, because they're shooting 30.8% from three-point range with a team that's been built around three-point shooting. So that's obviously not ideal. What the answer is there, I have no idea, but if Purdue's going to finish as strong as, people want them to finish and they want to finish, that's got to be part of the solution.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting storyline to watch. And I guess my point is there's good things from a standpoint of you're right. You never want to lose a game when you're ahead, like you're in lead for 23 minutes. But if the Boilermakers can right certain things, I think there's still the future is bright here looking down the stretch of the season. But we'll see how it all plays out. All right, switch to football here as we end up this segment a little bit. Tom, we spent a little bit of time this week with Tom Moreland, who deals with strategic marketing with Purdue football. Football season ticket sales are on. Our football season tickets are on sale. Renewals, I think, are starting in a couple of weeks. To me, that's just a sign that you got a plan, and maybe it's a hopeful sign that come September 4th there are going to be fans in the stands in Ross-Ade Stadium. We don't know that for certain, but I guess the optimist in anyone, that's the first sign that it can happen.
Yeah, I asked Tom in another conversation earlier this week how many people he anticipated being in Ross-Ade Stadium this fall, Alan, and he said, of course, they're hopeful for 100% capacity, so they have to plan for the best. As you noted, new season ticket sales did go on sale on Tuesday. Renewals will begin February 23rd. And again, he's optimistic, and we all know the urgency for these athletic departments to get people in these stands for financial reasons. So, yeah, again, they seem optimistic. Who knows, Alan? September 4th, that's 7 months away. We all know what's going on from a vaccination standpoint. Who knows where we will be in 6 or 7 months? You'd like to think our immunity as a community would be improved. Of course, Tom says they're going to consult with local health officials, the Big Ten, university officials, when they ultimately decide what that capacity is going to be in September. So, again, we're all hopeful, guys. I'll be honest with you from a selfish standpoint. It's just not as much fun being at college events without fans. I mean,
Yeah.
Even watching on television, in any of these events, you really underestimated the atmosphere that was generated by crowds, the color, the pageantry, some of the cornball stuff we talk about that make college sports great. You know, it's not cornball stuff, it's real. And boy, I certainly missed having the bombast of the marching band, the big world's largest bass drum, the cheerleaders, the fans, the tailgating. And I'm hopeful we can get as many people as possible in these events, this fall.
You know, Brian, you look at this, and you've obviously attended basketball games without fans, and we've talked about that. It's funny in basketball that, you kind of look at it, and it's kind of a theater that you kind of, at least for me, I sometimes forget there aren't fans in there. You're sitting in Mackey Arena and watching it all come down from that standpoint. How much do you think that, from a player's perspective, have they gotten used to it? Does it impact them a lot in your view? And at least when you're talking to the Purdue basketball players, how much do you see that has this become at least normal for the 2020-21 season?
I think the definition of normal has changed, obviously, and I think now it's become normal. I think before it was probably really weird. And something everyone had to adjust to because this isn't what they signed up for. When you come to Purdue, for example, you sign up to play basketball there and to be part of that environment and to have that crowd at your back. And, time has shown us many, many times about how Mackey Arena alone can make Purdue into something much more than it is otherwise. I think that's something they've missed, but I don't know if it's necessarily affected them all that much because when you look at their record, it's not like you see a lot of games where you think they would have won that game had there been a crowd there. Obviously the Michigan game is their only home loss this season. But I think, I think Sasha Stefanovic was the biggest issue with that game. Not being able to practice with him. I'm not saying they would have won with him, but I'm saying that obviously played a role. But I think that, Purdue is missing an advantage, but I don't know if that's necessarily shown up all that much. On the road, I don't know how much of a disadvantage you're at. It is, I think it's demonstrably harder to win on the road still than it was before. Not harder than before, but as hard as before. But I think, Purdue's been able to overcome that a little bit. I think at the end of the day, basketball is basketball. And these guys, for as much as they want to play in front of these crowds, as much as they have played in front of these crowds, they came up playing AAU games in front of nobody. They came up playing high school games in front of a few hundred people. I know it's apples to oranges there, but basketball is still basketball. And I think that's what it's boiled down to as time has gone on. But I'm sure it's something that, they've had to adjust to a little bit.
Yeah, no question on that front. All right. Well, we will come to the end of this segment. Brian will be making the trip down south to watch Trey Kaufman-Renn play tonight, and we'll have some stuff on the site next week as well. And we'll have our weekend conversation too, so stay tuned for that. Segment 2, Rob Hummel joins me, and we'll talk about last night's game and more. And we'll look forward to that. Segment 3, Tom Moreland Guys, have a good rest of your day. Appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to next week's show. Mike Babinski will be our guest as well, so we'll have get ready for Mike too. So have a good one, and we'll stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple minutes for Gold and Black Live.
Dive into the new Badaya, only at the XXX Family Restaurant in West Lafayette. Ladies and gentlemen, gold medalist David Badaya will now attempt a triple 5-second tossback. Can he do it?